Thank you for joining us today for In Conversation with Kestin Cornwall and Michael Lepoy.
Hello, Miigwech, bonjour. My name is Michael Lepoy, Assistant Professor of Design in the Faculty of Design in the Environmental Design and Industrial Design programs.
I'm Kestin Cornwall. I'm an Assistant Professor at OCAD University. I specialize in illustration and visual arts. I also work in graphic design and advertising. Up to you. Wherever you're more comfortable. You can look at the camera and look at me if you like. I kind of do both. When you're speaking, it'll just be you, and when we both talk, it'll be both of us. I think that's what we'll record. All right. So thanks. We finally made this happen. Adé, could you just give everyone your name, the program you took, and any contact information they can reach you at?
Sure. Yeah. So hi everyone, my name is Adé. I just recently graduated from the environmental design program. I also completed a minor in entrepreneurship and social innovation. You can reach me through Instagram at ade.jpg, so ade.jpg. Yeah.
Perfect. All right, so we got some questions for you. First question is, what programs have you taken at OCAD, and how does the program relate or affect your practice?
Right. So I was in the environmental design program, and essentially that relates to the design of spaces and the built environment. And on a personal level, I would say that ED has inspired my work in the sense that I now still work in the creation of spaces. They're not necessarily always built. So I'm involved in a lot of like community activation work and also just things to create spaces for people to gather or just commune. So I would say that the idea of creating spaces for people to be together is a part of the program that I've transferred into like my personal practice. Yeah. Perfect.
And can you give us a brief description of your work? It doesn't have to be formal, but an informal description of your work and your process.
So are we talking about thesis work or?
Your personal work. So like what you're doing. You can involve your thesis if you'd like.
Okay. So my work currently revolves just around creating spaces for people to be together, like I said. And the ways I do this are through, I have a podcast where I speak to different people about my age, creative people, or people just doing anything really about their lived experiences and just finding ways for people to connect. So I'll say like with everything I do, I'm always looking for opportunities to like create room for communication, connection, and empathy, essentially. I think those are three values that really tie into all the things I do. I also recently founded a creative agency and studio with two friends called Mother Son. And with that, we essentially focus on offering visual design services and helping with branding and just essentially creating experiences for people to have things to hold on to. So yeah, like with everything I do, there's really that strong focus on community and just like sharing lived experiences. Yeah.
Great. When did you launch that project?
So with the agency, we started last October. And one of our first big things was that we launched this fund to provide 3 grants of $500 to 3 African artists. So the work is currently being made. But yeah, so we're a little over 6 months old now, I'll say. And then the podcast started in 2019. So yeah.
Great. Very interesting. What interests you the most about the field you're working in? You touched on it a little bit, but do you want more in detail with that?
Yeah, sure. So I think what I would say interests me the most about the fields I work in is just the idea of people and sharing, because I think a while ago, maybe like in second year, is when I really start to realize that everyone's living life differently and navigating the same situations just in like very different ways. And it doesn't matter if like someone's your sibling or you've been like going through life together, like you've had different experiences of yourselves, people around you and your surroundings. So I thought it would be interesting or I've always found it interesting to try to tap into that to see ways that we might be able to share knowledge and like help each other. I think that's another thing that's really big for me, just the whole idea of knowledge sharing and like providing access to people to people who might not necessarily receive it firsthand. That's something that's like really fun for me. So yeah.
That's it's true. Because everyone goes through life and everyone has individual experiences.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we all experience things under certain subheadings we experience and understand them differently, for sure. Could you describe I asked you this earlier, but your process and how you work? So more about how you work through to get to your ideas or to get to your final project. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
So I would say it really just depends on what the project in itself is. But I think for me, most of my process happens in my head. So especially with thesis, yeah, and that has its pros and its cons, because on one hand, it's like I pay a lot of attention to detail and notice things that like most people don't, which is, I feel, a great asset to have when it comes to design or just like the kind of work I like to do. But then it's also a problem because it's like you spend so much time in your head. When do things actually physically realize? And one strategy I would say I've kind of learned to deal with that is that I now work in team settings. So it's like through university, I've recognized that my strengths lie in developing the concepts or just like thinking through those things. And then also with like managing things or like production, in the sense that it's like organizing people, getting teams together. Like I really perform well in like positions of leadership. So recognizing that and just playing to my strengths by trying to work in team settings as much as I can, where it's more like my job is to make sure all the moving parts are working together and everything's fluid, more so than like actually doing some direct tasks. So it's like if I'm good at the planning, I'm good at like this is what needs to be done, but I might not be able to do everything. And I would say like in the past year, I've really just learned to acknowledge the value in that, and also in like recognizing that you as one person cannot do everything. And it's always great to work in teams because you get like different perspectives, different views, which again ties into the whole thing of we've lived differently, so we all have different approaches to doing things. So yeah.
For sure. Being able to delegate in a way or organize or speak is extremely valuable. And if you know how to maximize that, even though it can be frustrating because you're trying to organize with people and everyone has different ways of working. But if you can make that work, it can lead to a vast amount of success. So it's great. So you see value in that, you're working on that. Can you briefly describe your experience at OCAD? It's an open-ended question.
Yeah, my experience at OCAD was really, I would say it was really dynamic. I think of OCAD almost as a launch pad to a lot of the things I did, because this is not something that's specific to OCAD, but it's like with art and design institutions in general, you're not particularly like hand-fed things. Like you're not taught like, this is how you do this is how you do that. You kind of learn through the experiences that you have access to by being in those spaces. So when I think about OCAD, I'm thinking about like the different people I met, and also things like the talks. So this was something that wasn't particularly academic, but there used to be like a lot of talks from guest artists, guest profs, that kind of thing. Experience through things like being part of the student union, which I was, and I'm still a part of and have been for about 3 years now, doing things like the BSc. So just like getting exposed to people from all these different backgrounds and just like who think differently has been, I would say, like a highlight of just being at OCAD. So yeah, when I think about my OCAD experience, I just think of it as like a launch pad and like a space that helped me just figure out what it was I wanted to do. So like through each experience there was like, I'm more inclined to this, I'm not so into this kind of stuff. But then like everything's that led me to this point where I kind of knew like I have a good idea of like what I'm supposed to be doing. So it's like positive, but then it's also taught me that like my experience of OCAD is not necessarily like the base level experience. But then just because people aren't as like ambitious about going out and seeking out things doesn't mean like they shouldn't have opportunities. So in some ways, like I now see the value in serving as a bridge to connect people to the things they need to do what they want, essentially. So yeah, I hope that answered that question.
No, yeah, you answered a few questions there, but you're more, yeah, you're because of the process of how your experience at OCAD was, it led you to understand that you like to work as the bridge, like the mediator in a lot of ways. Being a mediator is, we need mediators. Explain points, deliver information, to give people who may not know how to access certain information opportunities that information. So that's great. What can your community or people at OCAD, OCAD and then outside of OCAD, what can your community do to support you?
Essentially, right now, the main thing I'm trying to do is to get into more creative production. So I've worked right now on a couple of photo shoots, some video shoots, some commercial stuff as well. I'd really like to delve into that space further because, like I said, I think of things as what they are and then the core essence of what they are. So ED was like architecture, interior design, lighting, all that kind of stuff. But at the core, it's really just like creating spaces for experiences to occur. And that's, to me, like what I'm transferring from what I've learned into what I'm trying to do with production. So essentially just anything relating to creative production, for videos, for photo stuff, for anything really. I'd like to work at a production studio right now. So yeah.
That's great. And then at OCAD, if you were to throw in, is there something OCAD could do or could have done to support you more, or you think you've received the support you needed?
I would say I definitely received the support I needed, but if OCAD would like to support me more, I think a good way to do that would be to help me support OCAD, because like I said, I realized through my time there that my experience was great, but then not everyone will get that kind of experience. So I'd like to then delve deeper into figuring out ways to bridge the gaps so the overall student experience, and particularly for like Black students, is just like enhanced. So that's something like I'd be open to working with the university on, and I hope that really happens. So yeah.
Great. Yeah, that I enjoyed the conversation. This isn't one of the questions, but I know you worked on it. I was wondering if you worked on Black History Month in years past.
So I had worked on, sorry, I didn't hear the end of your question.
And what your experience was with that.
Okay, so I started engaging with the BSA, I'll say, in second year. Well, technically more like at my portfolio interview for OCAD, because those happened in February. And I remember when I first came into the school, it was like there was all the Black art. So that was already like okay, this feels good. This is like good signs. But then I noticed that like when I actually got into OCAD, it wasn't just as prominent. So in second year, I was working with the BSA as an event planner. It wasn't too much work then, but then the year after is when I started to transition into the role of president. And I was working with Kaylee, the outgoing president then, and then we planned the Roots exhibition, which happened 2020, so just last year. And that went really well. And again, it was just a really good introduction to what it's like to produce things, because I was on the phone with a lot of things, talking to different people, and just like my first chance to really like get things to flow, work with like a lot of moving parts and all of that. And then the second chance to do that was this year's Black History Month, because we recognized that that sense of isolation that Black students at OCAD tend to feel would only just be amped up now that it's like we're not all in a space where we can even congregate or anything like that. So we said that it would be good. It was a team of 3. So myself, Aisha, Haidara, and Kadeem Lindsay. And then we also had support from staff like yourself and the administration, essentially. So we put together like some programming. We incorporated still the exhibition, just in a different way. Our Instagram page was mainly where things would happen. We also did some stuff with OCAD U Live. And that also was really fun. It was the first time we got to manage a really big budget. And I think maybe the most programming that's ever happened in Black History Month, in my time at OCAD at least. So it's like, on one hand, it sucks it happened online, but I'm also still happy with the way things turned out and the quality of events that we were able to produce. It was generally just like a great experience and like just good things to have under your belt, essentially.
It is, for sure. Did you want to share your podcast with the listeners and any other contact information?
Mm-hmm. So my podcast is called The Fourth Space. And like I said, it's really just me and a couple of friends, and maybe in the future people I don't know, just talking about our lived experiences in the hopes of like giving people things to hold on to that might be able to help them navigate life easier. Because I feel like life's already so hard. So let's just do what we can to make things flow nicer for everyone, essentially. But yeah, so my podcast has been inactive since August last year, mainly due to thesis. But now that that's done, I'll be bringing it back in July. And yeah, looking forward to that. So it's called The Fourth Space, and it's available anywhere you listen to podcasts. So yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. Did you want to give them your name and contact information again? And again, thank you for sitting down with me, and I enjoyed the conversation.
Sure. So my name is, once again, Adé Abegunde, and you can reach me on Instagram at ade.jpg, and also at my email. Should I spell out my email, or will it just be on the screen?
We'll just put it on the screen.
Okay, so my email will be somewhere on the screen here. But yeah, thank you.
Enjoy your day. I'm not going to end the call, but I'll stop recording. Be sure to check out our next episode, blackocadu.ca. Let's go.